The other thing I do on some of them, if I do put too much white around, I just dab my finger and wipe it off like that, and it leaves a lighter colour, and that doesn't look too bad either. And it also helps to cover up some of the mistakes you've made with chipping. Now, with chipping and weathering, one of the important things is to know what sort of look you're after before you start doing it, because if you just go in willy-nilly and start putting chips all over the thing and you don't know where you're going to end up, you'll end up with something that just doesn't look right. And with this one here, I wanted something that was fairly well weathered. It had quite a few chips on it, but I didn't want it to be absolutely beaten to death. Like I've done some models where all the guards are twisted and bent off, and we have the vents around the engines all broken and bent and things like that. I didn't want that to look good, but I wanted something that's been relatively well used. So I'll take some still shots to show you those chipping effects and what they look like. Okay, so now I'm going to start doing a little bit of pastel work. Well, this is not actually pastel, it's like pigments from MIG, which, yeah, fantastic to use these things. It just saves you a lot of time crushing up your own pastels, but the only problem is they're very expensive, so I try to use them sparingly. But I'm just going to put a little bit of dusting on here now. I normally start down around the tracks, and it's just a matter of dabbing it on. And just dab it around fairly roughly. Now, because when we done the wash on the wheels, we didn't clean it up. There's still a lot of the wash has dried on there and left an oily surface, which the pigment sticks to really well. But at first, we're just going to put a fair bit of grime up in here, up around the tracks, around the wheels. Just sort of dab it in so it's not an even pattern, just wherever you can get it, just dab it in there. Don't worry too much about the way it looks at the moment, because it's going to change completely in a minute when we do this other technique. So just put a fair bit in there, because this is the dirtiest part of tanks is up in the guards like this, up inside the running gear. Get some on the tracks down here. Okay, so the next part is a bit of a technique that I tried some time ago after watching someone else do it on the internet, and it works very well. So I just got a little bit of shell here. I just dip my brush in it, and then I just dab it on just loosely like that, wherever I put the pigment. Now what this does is it actually draws the fluid, draws the pigment into the seams, and it sticks inside all the grooves and cracks and seams and so on, which on a real tank, that's what used to happen. The dust used to gather inside those. Even if they cleaned the tank, there would still be dust and stuff going in there. So we'll put a fair bit on. We're going to get it to all stick in those seams. Then we'll do another light dusting over the top, and hopefully that should be the end of the weathering, except for the tracks, which is still the same technique. I'll dab it around the tracks, let the pigment like wet it, and let it rain with the grooves. Then I'll just highlight the tops of the tracks with a silver or maybe a lead pencil to bring the shine out on the tops of the steel of the tracks. And that should be pretty much the end of it, except for we just put a dull coat over the top to hold all the pigment and stuff in place, and it also kill any sheen that's left on here that shouldn't be on here. So I'll go ahead and start doing that. Okay, so now I'm going to start going over some of the polished detail places where things would have been polished, like the leading edge of the tracks here, leading edge of the guards, places where the crew used to climb in and out. And what I do, I use a 9B pencil. That means it's a really soft lead, comes off very easy, and it gives a very good look, because it's not, if you put like a silver paint on there, the silver paint's just way too bright, or I find it's too bright. So I just use this lead pencil, and it leaves it a fair darker shade, but if you get it in the right light it's really shiny, so it gives a more realistic effect, and it's a lot easier to pick out the detail with a nice sharp pencil than it is with a brush. So I'll go around and do that, and again I'll take some photos and show you the effect that it leaves. Okay, so we're just about done. I've just got a couple little things I want to do to finish off. One of them is to put a bit of soot around the end of the barrel here. Just a couple little odds and ends, like want to put a few grease stains around the running gear. A little bit of stain here from the fuel tank where it would have spilt over at times. And to do that I want it to look like it's oily, like it's still wet. So I'm going to have to do, what I do is I mix a little bit of future floor polish and a black acrylic, so it's an oily thing, and when it dries it's glossy and it looks wet. So that's how I do the grease and the oil stains. So I'll do those. Again, I'll take some photos so you can have a look. So we're finally finished. All I have to do now is put a dull coat on here, and that'll be the end of it. Then I can just put it on the shelf. But I don't really need to put a dull coat on to take photos, so I'm going to take a few still photos now to end out the this clip. And I like taking a lot of photos. Since digital photography come along, it's very convenient to be able to take a lot of photos from all different angles, close-ups and so on. Because once you put them on the computer and blow them up, some of them will look great and some of them will look really shoddy. So when you see the shoddy ones, you can look and see, well, why does that not look right? And you can fix your mistakes for next time you build a model. So I recommend doing that, take as many photos as you can, put them up on the computer and go through them and look for the mistakes or things that you could probably do better for next time. But that's it for me for this time. Enjoy the photos. Please leave any comments that you like. I'm open to criticism. So yeah, until next time.